Right, here we are. So basically we got the Charisma m48s and the GT24. I think that's what they are. We're going to try and run some of these indoors. So I like Subaru, so yeah, this is what we've ended up with. I'll talk about this first. We should be able to get some different grease in the diffs if we want to. Oil filled shocks you can get on there. I haven't got them yet because it's a little bit like that. What else can I cover on this? I've gorilla taped the inside the body to strengthen it up. It helps it not get kinks in it. Just trying to think of other stuff with this. Really what I want to do is, I hated the little clips, and what I initially done was I put a hairband and I pushed the clips up through the body so you didn't lose the clips like this here. Then what I've done is I'm going to have to change it. I've spoilt the body by pushing the clips through. You can see I've damaged it. It's not very nice. And then I'll come up with this idea after, which I'm going to change again as well, because I'm not happy with this either. So I really bought into the Charisma. Basically my mate and his mate had the Porsches when they were out quite a few years ago, and he started rally at Paddlesworth. And now we've got Redwoods Rally X, and we're just focusing mainly on rally. I could have bought into the Sen. I've got a WR8 and a WR8 being converted to 10th scale as well. Great cars. And I watched a YouTube video the other day, and he had the Sen, the Charisma and the WR8, and he said the WR8's always king. But one thing I'd like to say that was great in the video that he'd put in was he mentioned how this car out of the three drove and had that, it had the most rally feel about it. It had the magic. And at Redwoods, obviously we do the 10th rally in the racing, and we have to look into what tyres we're running in the rules, because if you're not careful, no disrespect to anyone, but you've got touring car drivers in RC that have raced touring cars for years. There's not really been a lot of rally done, or they're buggy racers, or you know, carpet racers, if you like, and they want to try something new. They come to rally, and I find they want to take the rally out of rally. They want to turn it into RC racing. What you get is they're always longing for a different tyre, so that they're getting 100% grip. Well, that takes the magic out of rally. That's just my opinion, and I'm right. Anyway, going back to this, I've put flat plates on here and glued them on. And then I've put Velcro on, but the problem I've got is this Velcro is so thick it's lifting the body up, so I've got big gaps in the wheel arches. So what I'm going to do is remove this Velcro. I'm not doing it now. I've got Velcro in the body, and the idea was so that when the post drop through, it aligns it, but you don't have to fiddle with the little clips. What I'm going to do now, well, not right now, is I'm going to remove the Velcro, and I'm going to put the Velcro on the sides here. So you just drop this down, it'll go to the right height, and then you Velcro the sides, and that'll keep it on. In the past with this, because you've got this battery tray, if you run a 2S, it's hard to put the 2S in here and get all the leads in. So you can, if you're careful, you have to take this top cover off. You can punch a hole through the battery tray and through this top bit, and run the battery lead up out here, and then you push your battery lead, so you've got the ESC lead sticks up here and the battery lead comes up through as well, and you plug it in up here. That leaves you no leads in here and just your battery, so it makes it easier to put the battery in, and this clips on easier. So that's a mod that I will do later on. But great little car. We're hoping we can run these indoors over the winter, keep people getting out and doing RC. Trouble, we was doing temps, but there's not a lot of space, so we think this will be the way forward. So there's a few people at the club have got them, so we're going to try and do 24th racing indoors, and everyone's on the same platform. Them, all right, they may have different opinions. There is a few different tyres, but it'll be very close racing, and it'll be interesting to see how we can get these set up. Lovely little car. Body balloons a little bit, but I'm going to have it so it velcros in. It sort of tidies it up a little bit, I think. Right, so that's that. Happy days. That's what we're buying into. I'll do greasing on the diffs of that, and the oil filled shocks at some stage. But this, going back to it, what have you got? One thing I noticed was with the Sen, the Puma, lovely. I love what they've done with the chassis. It looks like it might have a centre diff going in it, but I don't know quite how they'd do it. There's a cavity at the back, looks like it's going to house a diff. It may be the same diff as what you got in the front, but the casing bolts straight onto a different spur. Quite how they do it, I don't know, if it happens. This, on the other hand, a lot of people said, oh, the motor's rubbish, the ESC's rubbish, bloody, bloody, blah. They did knock it, but I think, like I've mentioned before in another video, was if you could buy this at a roller and they discounted you the motor, the ESC, the servo and the radio, what price could they make this car? I mean, already you can get it for, it's around £300 in it, probably less, right? I got it for less. But what you're getting is, the first thing that struck me when I rolled this out of the box was how scale the body looked and the wheels. Obviously it's not clipped on properly, but it just looks amazing. So that was one thing I liked. The Sen, obviously, problem is, if you're into rally, you're going to want to own the different chassis anyway. I want to own the Sen, and I've got the WR8 now. I've got this, but the Sen's to come. I didn't go for the Sen because someone done a video and they done this with the steering, and it didn't look like it had a lot of steering. And when I looked at the hubs and that, I didn't know it didn't look like you could file much off to gain. And I didn't want to lay out the extra money at this moment in time and go for that and find I couldn't get, because I want to use this on a rally stage with FPV as well as normal rally. So what have I done here? What I wanted to cover was, quickly, was underneath. It looks very basic, plastic motor mount, but it's all sealed in. So your spur and pinion sealed in, that's great. Very pretty. You got stuff written on here, and on the drive shafts. They've brought out the short wheelbase Audi Quattro, so I'm hoping it's just a matter of changing this chassis and the drive shaft and the top post. You got your anti-roll bars on it already, and although there is a bit of slop in it, I don't know whether you'll be able to get rid of that, but will it affect it? I've only heard good things. This is the same chassis, I think, as the old Porsche one, and I've only ever heard that it drives great, so it's loads of fun. So that's key for me. And rally, I think, on it you've got two adjustments there, on the top, on the front, and on the bottom. There's two adjustments for the shocks. You got 3 different roll center on the inside. There's only one on the outside. It stays put on the outside at the front on the roll center. Steering arms, there's only one. Yeah, it stays put. The rear, there's 2 at the top and 2 at the bottom on the shocks. But then the roll center, you've got 3 on the inside and there's 4 on the outside. Crikey, what else can I cover on it? It is very basic. Some people have changed the ESC out and kept the original motor, but this does, they say you can only run it on 2S, but it does register, it counts 3 cells, and a lot of people have been running them on 3 cells. I'm not saying you should, I'm gonna, because if that goes wrong I'll be changing the ESC out anyway. I had a spare WR8 motor, so it's now got 4000 kV in it. I changed it out, put it on my FlySky Noble, so that's just sat there like that. My plan is to get some angled plastic, drill holes, countersink them from underneath, and run angled plastic right around here. That way I can pad the sides, stop the body from getting pushed in. And say you're racing or you clip something, I found it's key. That's the body sat on, and if you look, it goes right in. Now if you hit something while you're going fast and that goes right in, you're going to tear a wheel off, because whatever you hit is going to hook the wheel. But if it's padded, then it can't force that in. So once I get this upstand on it, I'm then going to run a net velcroed over the top. It'll all be with me. I like to make stuff myself. So it'll be angled plastic that'll sit down on this side and be countersunk, nut and bolted, and then netting over the top. I will be doing mud guards for it, so there'll be inner arches as well. I'll make them out of, the reason why I use them, they're quite brittle, but I use painters tea kettles, I think they're called, or something. Painters kettles, tea kettles, it ain't right. Painters kettles. So it's a pot you pour paint in. They're very lightweight plastic, and I gorilla tape them, which helps them not shatter. But I'll probably bolt angle alley on these shock towers, and then bolt the back of the bucket onto the angle, and then the arch will just sit over like that. You have to cut the back out here for your arm, the top links, but if you make the hole too big, you can always run your gorilla tape up to it and just cut a straight line down for it, so that passes through the joint on the gorilla tape. I think most of the dirt with the cars is when you're on lock, it sprays up in, and it's flying up, hitting the body and dropping down in. Another one is one of my cars, it's the WR8. Obviously that's got its upstands, I've taped it here and there, I've got the wheel arches. Now when the Fiesta body's on it, the Fiesta body touches the upstands and it's all sealed, so I get nothing in. But when I put the Evo body on it, there's gaps down the side, so the dirt's bouncing up through the gap and all going in there anyway. So it didn't look like it was effective, but the arches do work. There's not a lot on this that's unprotected. ESC sealed, alright, you could get that in your fan, but that's all sealed off. Things with this that could have been better is the fact if it had oil filled, sealable diffs, and the motor mount wasn't this plastic, it'd be good to have an alley upgrade, so an exact of that but in alloy. So this may be absolutely fine. The diffs I'm going to add in this video, I'm going to take the diffs apart, show you what's inside, and show you how I'm going to try and seal them a bit better other than having no seal. So cheap car, and some of it does look quite cheap, right? But it is cheap, isn't it? And I think looking at it, it's got all the tunability. I've only heard good things about it other than the motor and ESC. So, crikey, I'm going to do quite a bit with it. That's what I like. So there's going to be a lot of bits I can do to it. And there's nothing really on the car that's going to stop you from doing it. It's like if you haven't got steering lock, if the hubs will allow it, you can grind some off. Or if it's touching here, I mean, this screw head hits here, you could change the screw out or something so it didn't hit there, and try and change the restrictions you got, so you get more lock. But this had enough lock on it, so you got to look at what you're limited with, and I don't think you're limited on anything here. You can still try and seal the diffs up. This may be all right. I'd say that's probably the one thing I am worried about, is the motor mount and flexing. If that's flexing up and down and the screws get pulled in the plastic, it could start denting it, and then your motors comes loose because you've worn it loose. Scale is amazing with it. So the body, the wheels and tyres, absolutely love it. You got a little bumper at the front, which I'm planning on adding more foam so it fills more up to the bonnet. So if you hit anything, you're not going to, all right, you're protected there, but you could cave that bit in. And the same on the back. I want to infill this with a bit of lightweight foam as well. You can use like pull floats, the flat boards, high density foam you can get on eBay. Right, so something else I wanted to cover quickly was, so in a minute I'm going to stop the video, I'm going to get a diff out and I'm going to show you a diff and what I'm going to do with it. I could buy the linkages with the turnbuckles for this, they're £8, but I ordered, and I'll tell you why I ordered this, the WR8's got a link across here. It's an alloy link in the steering, and your screws go down through, and the screws and the alley wears and it gets slop, so you get a lot of movement in between the two. So some of the guys, they got the turnbuckle heads with the rose joints on, and they put threaded rod into it, and they just made a link up. So if you could make it whatever length you wanted, so you could tow it out or tow it in on this, and if it wears, you just change the turnbuckle, see, and you've got a lot better, there's a lot less slop in it anyway. So this is what I bought this for. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these, drill them, and put this threaded rod in. So all of my, I'll have turnbuckles on it basically, all adjustable links is what I'm going to do. But I won't, I'll just do one and show you it done, and I'm going to do a diff and show you it done. But I think this is going to be great. I've got a lot of work to do on it, and I will like do little videos showing what I've done at a later date. But yeah, love the car, and I think it's going to be great. So I'll pause it here and I'll come back when I've got a diff out. Right, one quick thing I forgot to mention was the back travel on this, absolutely fine, and the wheels lift up, but on the front you'll push it down, it starts to bind there. And what it is, it's not the top links, because they're hinged that way with the screws going that way, but on the steering arms these screws are binding. Let's try and get that in shot. They bind on the upstroke and the arm pinches, and then it starts to bend the steering rack and the hub. So what we need to do is get these screws out of the way. So I'm thinking either countersunk screws, replace both of these with countersunk screws, and see if I can lose that binding, because it will travel, but it pinches there and you're about 10mm off the floor. So you can push it all the way down, but as you do, it starts bending the hub and the steering rack, and it prevents the up travel. So I'm going to change the screws out and see if I can lose that. So it might be worth getting turnbuckles, guys, because this, I'll try and show you, has got slop in it. So you can see it moving. So what I'm going to do is, obviously I'm going to use these. I'm just going to see if these screws are going to stop that restriction of the suspension. Right, well, not great. These are plastic balls in the rod ends, and they expand as you screw them down. At the top there's a split through them, and they're like countersunk, and as you screw them down they expand, which is fine. But I have minimalised the binding of them arms, but the real binding, now I've stripped them all off, what you've got is the way the front anti-roll bar is fitted. try and show you. As the roll bar comes up, it gets to a point where it hits that top linkage, and it tries bending the arm around the top linkage. See it pulling the anti-roll bar at an angle. There you can see that. And it won't do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the anti-roll bar out, and at this point here I'm going to bend it straight down at an angle. Do the same both sides, so that when it gets to there, it won't be trying to bend it round there, because that's what's happening. When we took that off, let's show it. It stops there. Look, you can see it's stopping before it hits the floor, right? I take this off. The arms were restricting it as well, but the anti-roll bar was. Look now. Right, so I'm going to, if you look at that, it's straight. So what I'm going to do is bend it that way, so it goes off at that angle. At about that point, it'll go off at that angle. That way, it'll go round the arm. So, right. Two little problems, but I'd definitely change these balls out in these, because, or even the complete rod ends. What I might do is, I was going to cut one of these down. I was going to cut it in half, take about 2 mil off of it, and then I was going to drill it and put threaded rod in. But looking at the balls that are in these, I'm really not happy with them at all, so I'm probably going to change them all out for turnbuckles. Proper ones with steel balls in them, because there's slop in these anyway. One good thing they did do was they put bearings in this connecting rod here that joins the two sides together. Not a lot of the cars have that. The WR8 hasn't got it, although someone has designed one for it. A friend of mine. What other one hasn't got? There's quite a few of them don't have bearings in that connecting rod, and what you find is it just wears the connecting rod out, and it's a pain, because you end up with slop in your steering between the two wheels, which it does change the way the car's dealing with the ground. So anyway, I'll have this off and get it sorted, come back. Right, another little thing I wanted to add, all the screws on this are like, they're not threaded screws like this, they're all like a wood style screw. And you can say, oh, you know, I don't like it, are they unreliable, blah de blah. But what I would say is, I ordered an MCD 5th scale rally car, and I don't think it matters whether it's a rally car one or not. Basically, that's got exactly, they're even worse, they look just like wood screws, they've even got a sharp tip to them. So, and there's nothing wrong with that, and obviously you can change them all out anyway, but that is screwed right down tight. That didn't want that. You could use these arms still, right, and you could cut them, put threaded rod in, but ideally you're looking for metal balls to clip into them with quite a big collar on them to give it the room to turn around the ball. Just trying to see if this is wound right down. Probably there. These screws I put in are a bit long. Unfortunately, it's all I had, but they're countersunk screws, so it gives it a bit more movement. Right, I'll be back in a sec. Right, so we're back. I've bent this, I put a bend in it here going downwards, and then these ones going that way, these ones here, that has also been bent downwards, both of them. And now what we've got is, although the arms are restricting it a little, it's bottoming out now. We've still got anti-roll bar working there. You can see both wheels moving evenly. So a bit of a bodge. Back's fine, front's done. Right, I'll be back with the diff in a sec. Right, so here we are. Quick mention was I'm not happy with the rose joints in the links, and if you buy the turnbuckles for this, they don't come with a ball joint, so you'll be using these plastic ball joints unless you can get older metal ones. So I'm just going to go and buy Traxxas rod ends with the rose joints, yeah, and I will put my threaded rod in them, which you can get off eBay, and it's maybe a tenner for over a metre, about a metre long. I've undone this, gone into the diffs, so there's that. I took the screw out this end, so it made it easier to lift up and pull back. I'm not going to go into what I had to undo. Right, massive chunky gears, so that's a good thing, I think. Them drive shafts out the way. These just slide out, see. If they'd had, I've seen some of these that slide out like this, and if what they'd done, let's pull these out, so it's got a rod on it. Oh, not in shot, that's got a rod on it, so you pull it out, it comes straight out, so that lines up and goes through the other diff cup and slots into the other cup and aligns it all. But if that rod hadn't have been there and it had been a hole, you could have put a screw through from this side and screwed into that one, and therefore you could have put O-rings inside it and sandwiched it. But anyways, I'm going to clean this up, take it apart, and then I'm going to try and see. I think my idea of sealing it is possibly, where have I put them? Right, so I've gone to Lidl's and I bought these. So it's an O-ring set. So I've got loads in here I don't need, but just going to get an O-ring out of there and show you what I'm going to do. If I can't fit one inside the diff behind the gear, my plan is just to cram that over there, like so, and that will hopefully sit in the back of here, and hopefully restrict some of the oil from coming out. They're quite soft, yeah, look. I might even put an O-ring in here so the shaft's holding it in a bit. I'll have to look into that, but I'll be back in a sec. This is what we got. Nice big gears, and let's have a look. Nice big gears, 3 in there, and a gasket. Unfortunately, let's zoom back out a bit. Right. Here, nice, they always do that, don't they? It's been shimmed, there's a shim in there, but there's a slot. You're like, oh, I could put an O-ring in there. But if I put an O-ring in there, it's going to put more tension on this mesh. So it was something I toyed with doing, was putting an O-ring behind there. What is there? Really, you only want to use a small O-ring. So if I put that in there, I bet this won't work. No way of centralising it in the hole. I'll push that back on. No, crikey, that sits up a mile now. There's no way you're going to be able to do that. Unless you've got really thin O-rings, you're not going to be able to do that. Right. Use that to pick that out. Leave it over there. So, what I'm going to do is clean this up and put some oil in it. Yeah, and then I'll be back. But that's the plan. Is the only way I can think of helping seal it is by putting an O-ring on this side so it sandwiches up against. Let's try and get that back through the centre of there, eh? So it sandwiches there in this joint, which hopefully will stop the oil pouring out of there. Hopefully. Right, so what we tried to do, thought was a good idea, is on the inside of the diff, can't show you now, we tried countersinking it both ways so the oil seal would sit in the countersink and then you could put it back together. But these shafts have a square edge on, like a key, like that. So what we found is when the O-ring was on the inside, the O-ring was on this square edge. So it wasn't actually sealing because the rounded edge is the exact right amount. You probably can't see it. There's the flat edge. The rounded edge only finishes flush on the inside of the diff. So it left your O-ring on a square edge, no good. So I've put the O-ring back on the outside. And what we've done is countersunk these holes so that it sits in a little bit. So now there's two O-rings, one either side, and I might put O-rings in here to put a little bit of tension on the shafts, which help keep the shafts in. They do it on cars already, and that should maybe sort of squash the O-rings a bit. I've put 10k in the rear. Right, so basically I'm just getting a drill bit by hand and doing that, and I'm putting a countersink in it. This drill bit hits the bearing while it's on there, so it can't go any deeper. And you just spin it up as flat as you can to get a nice taper in there. And that'll take the O-ring in there. If I didn't have two in my hand, it would help. And it just sort of sits in there like that. Not really in focus, but it's a little bit proud. Or it was. But anyway, there you go. I'll be back in a minute. So yeah, I'm pushing an O-ring over there. And that's all I'm going to get. Then whack it straight back. I've tapered that with a drill bit, like I said. And then that sits in there like that. And with a little squish. What you might be able to do later on is we found that at full travel the drive shaft's tight, which means not tight, it doesn't restrict it, but it does push up against that. So you could put some foam that will hold a bit of tension on that, but will squash completely flat, which means it'll keep this O-ring under tension all the time. It may not work, and then I'll have to go back to grease in there, tune it with grease, but that's what I'm going for. Try that. Right, so with great difficulty I've put a taper in that side of there as well, countersink. Right, so I think we've had 400 in the front. No, it's 475 in the front, in the shocks, and 400 in the rear. One thing I would say is they're plastic shocks, metal cap. You can wind the springs down, right? I'd say the springs and shocks are really nice, good quality. And I may even put a set on my WR8. That's how good I think they are. And they're cheap. But this was bouncing a bit before. I'm happy with that. So, yeah, we emptied the shocks. 475 CST, 400 in the rear. Centre diff's got 100k in it. Rear's got 10k. No, sorry, centre diff is 20k. But we didn't have 20k, so we done half of 30 and half of 10. 10 in the rear and 100k in the front. Yeah, it's turning the motor over at the minute. And if I pick it up, it turns the whole lot on one wheel. But it feels, yeah, don't feel bad there. Yeah, the front's definitely tighter there. yeah, so I'm happy with that. So I'd say lovely scaled body. I think the car's going to be great. As for these rod ends, I'm going to buy Traxxas rod ends with the rose joints. They've got metal ones in. Seem really strong. And then I'm just going to put my threaded rod in, and I've got these to go off the length, so I'll set the lengths up to what they are as stock. So that's it, really. Really, well, I'm quite pleased with the outcome of how it's come. I've had to modify this anti-roll bar at the front so it didn't bind. We tested it with no shocks on it, and this dropped straight down, whereas before it wouldn't have done it. It would have been 10mm off the side because the anti-roll bar was restricting it. So what will I follow with? I don't know, really. I suppose I've got to go and test it, see what it's really like. Obviously it only had grease in it. It could spew the oil out the diffs, I don't know yet, but it was worth a try. Worst case scenario, I'll go straight back to grease. I've not lost anything. But I think it's going to be a good car. And on other reviews, you've seen the reviews where there's been ones where they've said, oh, it's underpowered. Well, my outlook is I've changed the motor out for a 4000. That ESC, the stock ESC, I'm not saying run it on a 3S, but it does count the 3 cells, and a lot of people are running them on 3S. Be prepared to change out the ESC if you do burn it out, but just go for a 4000 kV motor, probably around abouts. But yeah, that's it really. Yeah, all done. Leave any comments if you think if I've missed something that you want to know an answer to, and I'll answer that. And there will be a run video and some other work that I'm doing it. I've got to fit inner arches and some side bits with a net over, so I will get to that. But anyway, if you stayed this long, thanks for watching. See you later.